Chemistry multi-part calculation questions. When do you round? Is it at the end? Is it never to be as precise as possible? Is it just 3 sig figs to be safe? Let's have a look at it. So significant figures are only assessed at the end of each part. So if you have 3 parts, parts A, B, and C, your sig figs are only assessed at the end of each of those respective parts. Now, what about throughout the question then? Can you just write however many sig figs you want? The answer is yes, you can, but for efficiency's sake, I recommend you just write your answer to 3 or 4 sig figs from your calculator. But again, you're only assessed on your final answer for that part. With rounding, however, you must be as precise as possible. And what that means is you have to carry your exact answer in your calculator throughout every single step of every single question and only ever round at the very final part. So let's consider a multi-part question with 3 parts. Let's have a look at part A first. So over here, what we're going to do is in each calculation we do for this particular part, we do not round our answer. Now on the page, obviously it's not feasible to write every single decimal place out. So I recommend you just write it to 3 or 4, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to be assessed on that. But what you do have to do is ensure you save the exact value in your calculator and copy it over into each subsequent calculation. And only at the very end of the part is when you actually have to round it correctly to the appropriate number of significant figures. So now that you've done part A, how does rounding in sig figs work for parts B and C? Well, if you don't use the answer from part A in those subsequent parts, then don't worry about it. Just use the sig figs from the original question and that's it. So with rounding, how does that work? Well, because we want to be as precise as possible and we care about the actual numerical value we got from part A, we're going to copy that entire value. So from your calculator, you want to copy over the whole number, and typically most scientific calculators have an answer button, so you can just use that, and that's what we're going to use in part B. So first, focus on the level of precision, and then at the end of part B is when you want to go back to rounding, like we discussed in part A. And then when you round at the end of part B, you want to do it to the lowest number of significant figures. However, one thing to keep in mind though, is now because we've used an answer from part A, the sig figs for part B is influenced from the sig figs from part A. So you have to account for that. Now, I know it can be confusing because you use the exact value in your calculation, but when you rounded, you had to use the rounded value, but hopefully that clarifies things. So that's how sig figs and rounding works for every single calculation question you'll ever get in VCE chemistry.